So I think it is 11:30 Central. So I'm going to put everybody on mute and just get started. As people join, that's great. I am recording this, so we will be putting it out later after it's over. So I'm going to put you all on mute, and we are going to get started. We will have some Q&A at the end. If you have questions, please hold them until we have the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So, many of you are old friends, and I see some new friends on.
You can
So
get
I'm,
any Q&A. You can get some Q&A apparently.
who is not muted? Mute. Okay. So I welcome everybody. I'm really excited that you're all here today. We have people from all over the country, I think, on this with us this morning. And I just want to spend the first minute or two talking about who we are for those people who don't know that are on the call. My name is Lisa Schneegans, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Buzz360, where we are Republican operatives. We've been consumer marketers and technologists in political and in the private sector for many years. We're award-winning. Swipe Red is our relational organizing app, and it's award-winning. We were the first and the leading. We still are the leading Republican nationally scaled relational organizing platform. Campaign experience, we have a lot. But some of that we're going to talk about today are presidential, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, statewide constitutional, state legislator candidates, and we are an approved vendor with the RNC. What that means is the RNC has gone through our app. We have jumped through all of the cybersecurity and all those things that we have to go through to be an approved vendor. I'm really excited about what we did in 2024. Here's some stats. We were working in 18 states across the country. We had about a little over 16,000 grassroots activists and users on our app. We sent over 20 million text message reaching voters directly. We've had over, I think the number is actually about 101,000 relational conversations, friend to friend, authentic neighbor to neighbor interactions in 2024. We've sent out over nearly 20 million emails, and our new functionality, which we won't be talking about today, but I'm happy to talk about at a later date. We chased about 1.8 million early ballots.
I gave her $160 last year.
Oh, Kevin, I'm going to mute you again. I'm mute everybody again. So relational organizing, this is near and dear to my heart, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the next couple of few minutes, but it really is building power for friend-to-friend outreach. And for those of you who don't know, it really is using friends reaching out to friends and talking about things that are important. And we're going to cover today, what is relational organizing and why is it important? How to get started, building buy-in amongst your team, best practices, and we call it the ladder of engagement and tactics, paid or organic, tracking success, and then we'll have a QA session at the end. So I'm hoping that is going to fit everybody's needs, and we'll have the Q&A so you can ask questions at the end. So relational organizing is, as we define it, it is the strategy of mobilizing our volunteers and our staff to connect with people in their network and to have authentic conversations about your cause or your campaign. And simply put, a simple text message or a call or even a friendly chat at work or in a community event, a single conversation can jumpstart your campaign or your cause within a community. Here are some stats that I think are super important for us to talk about. Relational conversations, and that means people actually having conversations with other people. And the relational conversation is 2.5 times more effective than a conversation between strangers. Now, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? I mean, everybody knows that if you are asked to join an event or buy a product, a friend asking you to do that is much more effective. This is nothing new. A relational conversation, on average, you have an 80% higher contact rate. Meaning, if I'm picking up a phone, I'm not going to pick up a phone from somebody I don't know, right? Anytime you have a cold call, anytime you have a cold person at the door, you're less likely to actually have that conversation. And relational conversations are 10 times worth 10 times more than a stranger at a door, which, we all know about door knocking. We're going to talk a little bit more about it later on. But, the people that actually answer the doors, that is decaying rather quickly. So those are just some statistics. Then really, here's some other things that I really think are important. Why invest in relational? If you're in a campaign or you're trying to build a movement, many of us on this call have tried to build movements before, and it's not always the easiest. So relational organizing is really a wonderful tool for that. And Columbia universities have the largest study, and they said that if a friend texts a friend, now I don't mean a cold text, I mean a friend texting a friend, the likelihood of that voter to get out and vote is 8.3 percentage points higher. And they're 8 times more likely to come to an event if a friend of his has invited them, rather than even a peer-to-peer text message. And honestly, for those of you who don't know, our competition has been using relational organizing for years. Actually, it was Barack Obama that brought it to the forefront in the Democratic arena. So building a relational program is very effective, but we all know there's some hesitation, right, in building that large relational program. And some of the questions that we get asked every single day, and we're going to talk about them, is how do I get buy-in from my staff or my volunteers? How do I get them to really engage? Can it scale? Is this going to be 10 people, or can it scale to a larger congressional district or a Senate district or statewide? Can it scale? How do I incorporate this into my field program? And for those of you that don't know, field is like door knocking, relational organizing fits into fields. That's what a field program is. How does it fit in with that? And is it possible to set goals? We're going to talk about all of that. But the last one on this list is, I think, really worth me calling out. Privacy is really key to get buy-in. When you have a large number of volunteers getting on and they're sharing contacts and they're sharing information, you have to assure them that privacy is the key. Some apps that are like Swipe Red, they do say they share their contacts. So just be aware of that. So when we get started, the first thing we always talk about, and there's some people that have been on some of these teams, so they know these terms with me. The first thing we do is, it's really a centrally organized team, but it is decentralized. So we have a regional or a relational leader. They oversee the program. We have regional leaders, meaning a precinct or a Senate district or a region of a country or of a state. And then area leaders. That goes down even more granular. And you can see, we're going to talk more about the snowflake model you see on the right. That's what that snowflake model is. And that's how we start organizing our team. I'm not going to read all this because there's a lot of information here, but I wanted to put this up because any program that we have, if we're going to win elections, you have to have a plan, right? And relational organizing is no different. So these 8 points are key to building a good relational organizing plan. First, you need to define what are your goals? What are the metrics? What are you going to measure? If you don't measure it, you can't meet the goals. That's super important. Identify audiences and key targets. And that could be low propensity voters, Many of you might know that Donald Trump did a low propensity relational plan when he was running for office this time. Undecided voters, what is that audience we're trying to get to? Building your network. How do you recruit? How do you train? All of those pieces. And create and deploy messaging, friend to friend, neighbor to neighbor, peer to peer. Those are all tactics for sharing your message. Leverage technology. You don't need to have technology to use relational organizing. You really don't. But you do, if you want to scale, technology is really key. And so, what is your technology? We, of course, are the makers of Swipe Red. So and Swipe Red provides that ability to scale. Activate and mobilize. How do we activate people? Do we engage them at events, friend banking, some of these things, competitions? I could tell story over story, and I will tell a couple of stories when we get down further, but competitions that we've had over time. And it's really a good way to get people involved. Evaluate and optimize. Data is always the key. You have to have good data analytics, all of those things that are really important for us to see, are we on track to win? And sustain the network. And I'm going to talk more about this when we get down into a couple of slides, but if you're going to start a good campaign, and if it's a statewide campaign, perhaps for 2026, I would say that you want to start thinking about that campaign in March and April this year. So how do you sustain that over time? Again, we're going to talk about the snowflake model. You see here my little graphic. If you have a volunteer and I'm saying, okay, I'm in the center here, I'm me, and I want to get my mom involved, my BFF, my brother, my sister, my neighbor, my coworker. That's my model. That's my snowflake. And the success is really evaluating and documenting who are those people? Who are the people that I'm going to put into my network? We engage others in what we call value-based conversations. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Ask people in their network to take action. Ask my sister, hey, I know that you really like Dennis Smith for President of the United States. Do you want to help him? Those are the things that we want to do, right? Ask people in their network to take action. Use data and subtract and subtracts and goal. And so as I started out, I said building buy-in is critical. And here's some ideas about that. I've been through this a lot of times now. We were the first ones. We came out relational on the right during the pandemic in 2020. It was a tough time to introduce a new product. So I say that 2022 was our first cycle, but we've been on a fair number of campaigns right now. And the absolute key to getting buy-in is training. Increase participation in training with your staff and your volunteers. It makes them feel comfortable with what we're trying to do. Talk about why and how. Why is this important? Some of the numbers I gave you, make sure that they know that. Share stories. I will tell you, I've got a lot of stories. I've got stories of how we can create competition. There was one of our very first campaigns, and I will tell this story because I think it's such a good one, with Sean Parnell in Pennsylvania. His communications team, they had a debate between Corey Lamb and Sean Parnell, but it was recorded. So we had time messages throughout the entire recording of that debate. And his volunteers were sending out messages during the debate to their friends saying, did you hear Corey Lamb? What a silly thing for him to say. And it was really cool because everybody got excited about it and it was very timely and they could talk through things. We've done a lot of things with, competitions and during Super Bowl games, all kinds of fun things. So share those stories with people. Remind them that the power of friend-to-friend outreach, and that's the power to change, is in their hands. This is critical, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But your volunteers, whether, they are critical to your success. Many communities don't respond to traditional voter outreach. We all probably know it. Most of the people on this call have been involved in politics for a while. And there's communities that really, they aren't reached. The people can't get to an apartment building. They can't get to places to go door knocking. So friend-to-friend outreach is really important to reach those people in the communities. So the ladder of engagement. To me, this is really important, and it's a tactic that you really have to think about, because the easier you start out with easy things, right? Asking people, would you share this content on social media? That's a pretty low ask, very little risk. Just share my message on your social media page. Or bring a friend to an event. If you're having a social meet or a meet and greet or a town hall or a neighborhood event, ask a friend to come. Very low risk, but it gets people feeling comfortable with that process. Then it gets a little more difficult. Will you ask 3 friends if they plan to vote? And then make sure that we track that. And then this is sustainable through training, coaching, and mentoring. Those are the 3 things. But when you're starting your relational plan, think about, what is that ladder of engagement? What is going to make the volunteers feel comfortable to get started? And once they feel comfortable, they're going to do more and more. Make it fun and easy. I can't stress this enough. Oh, sorry about that. My little window. I do have somebody asking quite a chat. Oh, Klaus has already answered it. Let's see, go back. Sorry. Make it fun and easy. This is really important. We've done a lot of fun things I was telling you about before. Provide a script or a pre-written message, so people don't feel like they have to think about what I'm supposed to write. I don't know what to say to people. Provide them that information. Make it easy for them. Help them craft their own messages if they want to. They are talking to people they know. So it can't be that strict that you can say, well, they can't say what they want to say. They are talking to their friends, but help them craft it. And remember the communities that everybody's connected to. Think about when you go to church, school communities, community centers, associations, all of those places, we all know people. And I might go to a parent teacher organization meeting, and I know that Mary Jo over here, she might have the same feelings I do about a certain topic. Engage with her. So build systematically. A very effective relational organizing comes down to procedures that work to accomplish a goal. And for the very first thing we need to think about, we talked about area leaders before, and you saw the roles that they have. And advocates will want to assess the personal network. And that's not hard to do. All I have to do is go through my phone and say, okay, these are the people that are in my network. I know that they feel the same way I do, right? Evaluate your personal network. Prepare advocates to engage with their friends and family about value-based conversations. You've heard me say that before. And what that means is, when my mom was raising me, she told me, don't talk about sex, politics, or religion, right? Don't talk about those. Well, times have changed. We're all talking about sex, politics, and religion. So that's what I'm talking about, a value-based conversation, things that we can, it's not about a campaign. It's not about a politician. It's about do Mary Jo and I feel the same about clean water, clean air, um, school choice? Those are value-based things that we need to talk about. It's not just about hammering home, did John Doe win the election, or John Doe's got to win the election. It is about values. That's what I mean by a value-based conversation. And those are the things that are very much easier to engage with than just hammering home, vote for so-and-so. Coordinate with other teams. If everybody on this call has probably been on a campaign team before, and, typically big ones, small ones, depending on, there's somebody that does the communications, a comm team, there's the field, there are, social media teams. Interact with all of those people, because just like what I told you the story about Sean Parnell, we were working with the comms team from that campaign. And they would call and say, "Hey, Lisa, we got this thing going on. How can we do this?" And coordinate with them. It's really, this is a holistic approach to campaigning. Set up and continued training and meetings. And again, I'm stressing the importance of training. And then how will you celebrate your successes? This is critical, because when you're working with volunteers or even paid, everybody likes to celebrate success. So how are you going to do that? We've got some suggestions coming up. And efficiency reigns supreme. Campaigns move fast. So you have to be efficient, methodical, and really have a strong plan. So how do you expand your volunteer base? Here's some ideas that we've had. There's mobilizing tactics, driving support, and expanding your volunteer base. Think about how you incorporate relational into other things that you're doing. At the end of one of the campaigns that we were working on a couple of years ago, anytime they had a fundraising or anytime they had a meet and greet, they would say, "Okay, everybody, let's message a friend. Let's message people about this particular topic," at the end of a fundraiser. We all know about door knocking or canvassing, right? It's a very common tactic. And so when you've got a group of people out door knocking, you take a 15-minute break, text message your friends. Ask them to come to an event. Ask them to meet the candidate. If you're phone banking, take 15 minutes in between the phones to message friends. And critically important is have a one-to-one conversation with people. So how do you find people? And we all know influencers and connectors. Every community has them. And if you have one-to-one conversations with those people that are the influencers or are the connectors. I know I live in Lakeville, Minnesota, and I could tell you 10 people right off the top of my head who are the influencers in Lakeville. Have those conversations, have a one-to-one conversation with them. Ask them to engage on your team. Ask them to maybe act as a leader because they are an influencer. They may know other connectors, and ask them, do you know other people that might be supportive of my cause? And then influencers, I'm getting really hot on this topic because in about a month, we're going to have a really exciting announcement. Micro-influencers are defined as people that have 100 to 1,000 connections. That's a micro-influencer. A regular influencer are 1,000 way up to hundreds of thousands of influencers on social media. They might be hard to find, but they're really important to engage. That's really going to help you grow your program. Now, train experienced volunteers to take more. I'm going to tell you, we were on a campaign in 2024. it was really an interesting campaign because it was slow to start. We got a few people going, we got a few people going. And then after a month or two, you could see that there was leaders coming on. You know, there was people that were really going to grab hold. And we had, we had divided up one of the congressional districts, and we had people that were leaders in each quadrant of that congressional district. And they would have one-to-one conversations, they would have coffees, they would have parties. They had all kinds of things, and they would map their friends and their contacts to do outreach and grow that network. By the end of that campaign, we had about 400 and some volunteers. And it was the coolest thing ever because other campaigns were saying, how do you get so many volunteers? They're running around in these shirts. And matter of fact, they themselves had given themselves the swipers. They even bought pens. You know, you've seen these pens that you can use on your phone. They even bought pens to match the color of the campaign. So it was, they became the leaders, and they kept growing and growing and growing and having more and more events, more one-on-one conversations. Ask them to take a leadership role. And then, of course, thank them profusely. So there's leveraging multiple tactics. There's all kinds of tactics for relational, and here's just to name a few. You hear me talk about one-to-one conversations. That's really important when you start talking about influencers. Have a staff member talk one-to-one to those people that are influencers in your district or your region. House parties, I'm going to talk more about that. We're going to give you a blueprint on how to do a house party. Neighbor to neighbor events. This is, if any of you are on the Trump 47 team, this is kind of the thing that the approach they took was neighbor to neighbor. Friend banking is different than phone banking. Phone banking is getting on, a tool like Red Dialer that we partner with from Advantage. And then just a bunch of people, predictive dialing, just dialing and talking to people, giving a script. Friend banking is to have, we've done a zillion Zooms where you get somebody on and they're talking. We can ask questions, whether it's the candidate or the campaign manager or the person that is the expert on the cause. They're talking, but you're messaging your friends during that friend banking. It builds that camaraderie that is really important to make a good relational plan. Remember, this is all about relationships. We've even done relational barnstorming. The definition of barnstorming is everybody just kind of plows into one area, has a party, has, a presentation, gets people involved and gets people excited about that particular cause or campaign. The house party. And we've done these a zillion different ways, but here's just kind of a blueprint. First, when somebody says, I want to have a house party, what you start off with is introductions. The host shares personal stories. Like I shared with you, I shared the story about Sean Parnell. Share personal stories, have a special guest, walk through the tools you're using. Obviously, we're Swipe Red. Pitch the importance of reaching out to 5 to 10 personal contacts during the house party. That's not a big ask, 5 to 10 people. Provide instructions on how to follow up. If Stan Hamilton is on with us today, and if he sends a message to his friend, make sure he understands how to follow up with that later. The host adds a hard ask at the end, being, can you sign up for future trainings? And then celebrate success. That's kind of our blueprint to a house party. Another best practice is, and these are really some important ones here, it's a multifaceted effort, and it involves ongoing training, feedback, data management, and a strategy and a tactical plan. Start early. I can't stress that enough. We have gotten in one of the very first campaigns we were involved in with Relational. They bought our product and they came to us 2 weeks before the election. Now, they did an amazing job for 2 weeks, but that's not effective enough to really win. They didn't win. So start early. Build a plan with multiple touch points. We've been talking about that already. And include advocates in your decision making and ask their opinion. I can't stress this enough. On another story I'd like to tell is once we campaign in 2024, once we engaged with the volunteers and said, what messages do you like to share? What messages don't you like to share? Here's why we want you to reach this particular audience. The buy-in went like this. It just took off. So engage with them, help them, ask them to make decisions. We have a polling in our product. Take a poll amongst them and make sure they know their value, because without them, without the volunteers, without that network, your program is going to fail. And then choose your goals, right? What are the number, this, and maybe this is just elementary to all of you that have been on campaigns, that you all set goals and what you're going to accomplish, but make sure that you can measure them and set them early on and make sure everybody understands them. So how many messages are we going to share this week? What's our goal? How many one-to-one conversations are we going to conduct? How many new voters are we going to identify? How many sign-up forms? Number of volunteers recruited? Whatever they are, whatever is going to work for your organization or your movement, those are the things that we should set goals on and make sure that they're achievable and trackable. One thing that all of us make a mistake on is we set all these goals and we can't isolate which ones were successful and which ones weren't. Paid or organic. This is a question that has come up just recently I think it was basically in the 2020, it started in John Ossoff campaign in Georgia back in 2022, but it got took on more legs in 2024, is relational paying people to send messages to their friends. Now, we've done both. We've done 100% volunteers, and we've done 100%, or not 100%, but pockets of paid. This has a lot of information on it. I'm not going to go through it, but the use of paid, here's some some good reasons why a paid is important. It can scale more rapidly, but the budget has to be there because you're going to pay people, and volunteers are scarce. In a volunteer organization, relational organizing plan, if you have strong grassroots, authentic advocacy is critical. And it's got a much longer term movement building infrastructure. Now, I would recommend a hybrid model. And we've done this, we're doing this with a big national organization right now, where you compensate the core organizers. Those people that I said were the relational leader and then the regional leaders, compensate them, right? And make sure their goals are set, but compensate them. Offer performance-based incentives to volunteers, prizes, stipends, recognition, training. Building a volunteer data-driven program first, and you can supplement paid if you need to. One of the biggest problems that I see with paid is it's fraud-ridden. If you haven't read about fraud and door knocking and scamming, this is the same thing in relational. There's a couple of the relational people that were doing it paid. Fraud is rampant. They say they had conversations and they didn't really. Here are 6 takeaways I really want to talk through a little bit. Aren't we reaching? My district, haven't I even touched yet? Partner with those community groups and really say in maybe the diverse communities, and make sure you recruit organizers in that from that community. It wouldn't be very good to have if you have two suburbs, one is, maybe all Caucasian, one is the Hispanic community. You wouldn't want an organizer that is Caucasian going into the Hispanic or Hispanic going into the Caucasian. Recruit people from their community. They're the people that understand what's going on there. Meet voters where they are using technology that matches a voter file with targeted voters on any mobile device. And that helps with efficiency and scale. You heard me say about efficiency was really the supreme. There you go. Trust your organizers, and I can't stress this enough. They are so important to us. We want to make sure that we trust what they're telling us. They know what's going on in the community far better than people that are not in the community. Make it easy to take action. Again, we talked about that briefly before. Make it be simple and seamless and have pre-written messages, easy tools, make it clear for people. And prioritize high-value contacts. Now, I don't like to say that one relationship is more important than the other, but I will tell you, high-value contacts are those people that are the micro-influencers. And as I said, I'm excited to tell you all about a project we're doing that should come to fruition in another month. Track, motivate, and then track, motivate, and recognize people, and use points and badges and shout outs and rewards and motivate advocates and keep the momentum going. Have pizza parties, have them get a coupon, have them win a book, have them win, a hat, whatever, motivate them. The turnout impact from Relational, and these are numbers from a Columbia study. The average voter is 2 times more likely to get to the polls if somebody they know asked them to do so. 2 times. The low propensity voters are 6 times more likely to go and vote if a friend has asked them. Millennial voters are 7 times, and minorities are 8 times more likely to get out to vote or get engaged with your organization or your movement if a friend has asked them to do so. I told you I was going to talk about some statistics. Here's some that these are just samples. These are not from any real campaign. I just made them up to show you what I would recommend that you measure. Advocates sharing, how many advocates are actually sharing your messages? How many friend-to-friend conversations did you have? You heard me say we had about 101,000. How many friend-to-friend conversations are you having, or your organization? Advocate conversions. If I go and meet with people, how many times are they converting and downloading the app or having a coffee or whatever it is? What's that conversion rate? Average contact matching, meaning, okay, this is the people that are in my network, and these are the people that are in my voter file, and these are matching. We want to reach those people. That's the ideal. The people that are in that universe that we want to reach, and the volunteers know them. Okay. And this is the average. Then social engagement. How many times are you sharing on social media? How many times is your message getting out on Facebook or Twitter? And micro-influencers and social influencers. These are some of the key metrics. There's more that you want to have, but you have to be able to measure it and have the right statistics to really evaluate, is it working? Do I need to change? And every phase of the program might have different measurements. I'm going to have some question and answers, but I just wanted to give everybody an overview of, again, what our products are. You can see here on my left is Swipe Red. These are some of the features that we have. It's a grassroots relational organizing app, Swipe Red, and you can see we are award winners. We are thrilled. We are finalists in the upcoming awards as well. In 2024, we had for our digital platform, we were awarded the gold medal for innovation and campaign technology by Campaigns and Tech Awards, a national organization. And we were just notified that we are a finalist for some of the platform work that we've done for best innovation in the field. And so we're super excited about it. Can't wait to see if we win the gold on that one. Here's some case studies I want to just bring your attention to. These are campaigns that we've been involved in. Presidential in 2024, this was probably the biggest case study that we have done because it was really interesting. There's 1,600 precincts in the state of Iowa. And Swipe Red was heavily deployed in 265 of those precincts in under a month. And we had 544 volunteers. In those 265 precincts, the vote margin was 24.73% higher versus the rest of the state where Swipe Red was not deployed. So we could isolate, nothing else was different, everything else was the same. It was just those 265 precincts, and the vote margin was much higher. In those precincts, we outperformed the polls by 40%. In another D7 district, a U.S. House race, a primary, there was a heavy primary. Our client, won 48% of the vote, and it was 12% higher over its closest competitor. Okay, in the general, we increased the voter turnout by 8%. Now, this is a D7 district, meaning, that's pretty democratic. We increased conservative turnout by 25.7% compared to 2018. And 97 of those new votes went to our customer, 97%. And this is the one we don't talk about as much, but the last bullet point there under U.S. House race was we were able to identify friends reaching out to friends on the app. We were able to identify and activate 2,176 new voters that were not on the voter file. Those are new voters, folks, in a U.S. House district. I think that's a lot. State Senate race, 35% increase in votes cast, a 10 percentage points increase in voter turnout, 10 percentage points, and a 15% or 15 times more volunteer recruitment. These are some case studies that the experiences we've had, and we're very proud of them. So I'm going to put it open. I'm going to take you all off mute, and I'm going to open it up for questions. You can see here, this is our website, buzz360.co. This is my mobile number. And we've just recently trying our hand at Substack. And so you will find me as the Relational Republican on Substack. And here's the URL. But I'm going to open it up, unmute all of you. Let's see, all participants unmute themselves. Okay, you can all unmute if you have questions, and I'm going to open it up. Any questions?
Hi, Lisa. What is your fee structure?
So it is for Swipe Red. We have an upfront software charge, a monthly software charge based on how big the movement or the district are. So let's just say if you were a House candidate, a state house,
Yep.
that's going to be much lower than a U.S. Congress.
Got it.
Because it's based on the size of the district, the kind of the eligible voters in your district. That's what the fee structure is for Swipe Red.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Lisa,
go ahead.
This is Steve. Hey, I want to thank you for putting the statistics in there. I hadn't really thought about metrics, but obviously, if you don't have metrics, you don't really know where you're at. And the statistics you showed were kind of helpful in how I might quantify an implementation and then know if I'm on track or not. So just wanted to
Right.
comment that was really helpful.
Good. Thank you, Steve.
Lisa, this is Stan Hamilton, and
Yes,
we
Dan.
just finished the elections in November. And the next cycle of elections, take out city council or school board will be,
Right.
18, 20 months from now. It's maybe not too early to recruit volunteers, but would you recommend that we wait until January of next year? If you're going to do something like this, there is a burnout factor, and we don't even have candidates
Right.
identified yet. So, I mean, the time to use a tool like Swipe Red is still maybe after you've identified a candidate in a particular race, like next May or whenever it is.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you asked that question, Stan, because here's my here's my take on it. A relational organizing plan should not necessarily always just be candidate specific. If you're in a district that is, let's just say you're in a heavily Democratic district, right? There's a whole bunch of groundwork you can do before you ever get a candidate. You can get people having those value-based conversations. You can get people engaged into the Republican Party. You can get people engaged to come to events that you hold. All of those things can be building now, or maybe, in 3-4 months. All those things you can build. And then when you have the candidate, you have that infrastructure. That's why it's different when we're talking about paid versus unpaid or organic. That organic is really cool because you have that infrastructure and you can turn it on and off whenever you need it. And it's not specific to the candidate. It could be specific to our cause, to our Republican values. And so, start whenever you can, the sooner the better, and then flip it over to a school board candidate or a city council or, a US Congress. Next time when those candidates come on.
Just think of recall initiative.
It's no different than really building excitement about who they are and what they stand for. Can I answer a question, Stan?
Yes, no, yes, that's a good answer, Lisa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Lisa, this is
Yeah.
Dennis Smith. If I could add in Minnesota, some may know that we are in the middle of a recount effort going on in some legislative seats, state legislative seats. And one of the Senate districts that I talk to regularly was talking to me about how this particular service would have been really helpful when they were trying to acquire signatures had they had it up and running and
Right.
fully engaged. And what you gave was a good example. And then this recall is another one where it's a tool to be used ongoing to make it most effective.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis, because those things are happening all the time, right? I mean, this is politics, so we always have some movement, and the recall in Minnesota is a big one. I'm also involved in a recall in Colorado. That's when you're building that network, and then that network can be flipped to a campaign if need be.
Yeah, Lisa.
So Lisa,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, that difference between campaign versus staff, it's kind of like the matrix versus staff organizations that used to exist. I don't know if people do that anymore, but I do see that when you set the organization, the relational organization up, you could pretty much use it for anything. A school board candidate, you could, and in this case with these recall, we've got over 20 House districts now have completed their assignment petitions. We're going to have a whole bunch of elections going on here in a matter of months for House
Right.
district.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure of that at this point, unless the court comes out with some, overwhelming change. But yeah, I was thinking this wasn't going to be needed until next year, election season. But I'm thinking that if you build this organization and build these relationships, you can actually use them for virtually anything that you have to move masses of people for.
And Steve, that's a very good point. And when you think about all the different variations that there are, and particularly in our country today, you know, I would say relational is more important today than it was before Donald Trump took over. Because now is the time Republicans, we should be excited to be Republicans. We have really good things going on. And let's get those people engaged. Let's build that network. Let's get the friends involved and have those conversations. My in-laws are Democrats, right? Or not my in-laws, but my son's in-laws, sorry. We were just having a conversation. We're good friends. We have conversations with them. And I said just the other day, I said, Molly, you and I probably have more in common than more that we disagree on. Now's the time to be having those conversations.
Yes.
So, what other questions does anybody have?
Lisa, this
This,
is,
Steve, oh, here, if I may, this is Steve Cherney. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Here in Minnesota, we have a dynamic up here where we have we're pitted against each other, Republicans against Republicans.
Yep.
We'll call it the old guy. You know it very well, and so do I.
Yep.
As I look through the slides here and hear your presentation, I really feel that we need to take this up to Alex level at the state party and have this presentation, if it hasn't been made to them, because we need to bring, if we're going to infiltrate Duluth and Minneapolis and St. Paul and Rochester, where there's great divisions, something like this, the relationship and the building of trust amongst each other is so vitally important, not only from the standpoint of bringing candidates together, but the fundraising. I really feel that this past cycle, the past 4 years here in Minnesota, that the fundraising with respect to trusting the Republican Party was lacking. And now we have an opportunity riding the Trump wave here in Minnesota and across the nation, but I'm talking specifically Minnesota, to take your model and somehow apply it, to, I'll call the rocks and cows area, so we can raise up and not necessarily have to rely on the big elephant donors and the large donors, but get the people trusting in the party, and maybe that can bring us together. But does that sound reasonable, Lisa, as far as?
Yes, it does, Stephen. We can address that offline.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else had a question.
yeah,
Was it?
I did, this is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Lisa. One of the issues I've had with this swipe red is that it wants to sync with my contacts.
Yep.
I have thousands of contacts, and most of those are probably related to working in the pharmaceutical industry. I don't want to reach out to those people. I don't want to sync with, how do you make your contact list? Because that's the piece that I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, and I'm happy to get on a demo with you and show you, because you can deselect people that they don't want. You can also tag people that these are the people in my network and only sort those people. So there's other ways to do it.
Can I make a new list entirely on my own?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Using a tag. Yep.
Okay.
Now the one thing I want to make sure that everybody understands, I touched on this earlier. Swipe Red and Buzz360 have taken a really strong approach that we do not share your contacts with anybody, right? I would be lying if I told you they were not sitting in the Amazon cloud someplace, because they have to be somewhere. But we don't share them or sell them or anything like that. There are other apps that do, but we do not. And we think that's where you build trust, by respecting privacy.
So, hey, this is Steve. My answer to that was I just added a line and it only cost me $10 a month and I only put the contacts in that phone that I wanted. And that's another way to do it.
What other questions anybody else have? Any other questions? Somebody brought up fundraising and I wanted to share with you, and I might, we might have some fun, interesting, we have a colleague out in DC that some of you on this call probably know, but his role is fundraising, and we're going to do a relational fundraising drive with him. And we've never really tried that. But think about it, the same thing that applies, right? If a friend asks you to donate $10, you're much more likely to do that than if a stranger does. So we're going to be talking about that more coming up. And hopefully we'll have some good case study on that. Any other questions?
Lisa, did you say that you will send out the presentation?
Yeah, we have recorded this, so we will send out the recording.
Great, terrific, thank you.
Anybody else have questions? There's a lot of people that are not from Minnesota on. I know we have a higher contingency because that's where we live. But any other questions that might be specific to your region? No? Thank you, everybody. I am really excited that we all got on today and we could talk about this. I think it is the difference between winning and losing. I think it's different, the difference of, keeping our country the way we think it should be. Or our city or our state, whatever, our school board. Did you know, one other thing that I didn't mention, but I maybe should, is that one of the first democratic apps that was built was for school board. It was a school board candidate. So to me, that's interesting because everybody might think, well, that's, it's just for big races. It's not. It is absolutely not. Klaus, did you have another question? No? Okay. Anything else? We'll call it a day and I will send out the recording as soon as we have got it up in the cloud. And if you have any questions, again, you see my phone number. That is my mobile number. You can check me out at the Relational Republican Substack at lisa.schneegans@substack.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, it's terrific,
Lisa.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.